You were at the Talking Points USA conference. This was much discussed.
Yes, turning points.
Excuse me.
Big
But
fan.
it's mostly talking points.
I love what the kids are doing at Talking Points USA.
Well, I love spending my summer
And
weekends.
America's talking.
I love spending my summer weekends at a Charlie Kirk conference talking about Jeffrey Epstein,
Yes.
and that's exactly what.
But man, Charlie Kirk was talking about it Friday, and now all of a sudden today, I'm not talking about it anymore.
Yeah. Here is what some of Trump's most ardent supporters told us.
Okay.
What do you think is going to happen?
I think they're going to maybe give us pieces and maybe not the whole thing and think that that's going to suffice. And I don't think people are going to be quiet about it until they really do it. But who knows if we'll ever know the true story.
Ultimately, how bad do you think it would be for the MAGA movement, for young people's trust in Trump if by the end of his term they don't release everything they know about Epstein?
Well, I think that if they don't release the Epstein files, whatever J.D. Vance says then is irrelevant because it's like everybody's going to take it as like a lie because of what Donald Trump did. But I think J.D. Vance wants these files released as well. And I think that Donald Trump, he promised them, so he needs to do it. No matter who's on them, we need to release the Epstein files.
The whole debate's about Bongino versus Bondi, but ultimately it's Trump's decision, right? He has the power.
It's Trump's decision. It's Trump's decision. I think again, and I'm not going to make the decision for the president. It's not my job. It's not my place. But I do think the way that I'm seeing it played out is that Bongino will be here and Pam Bondi will be the fall guy.
You think that's fair?
I don't think anything's fair in politics.
Yeah, nothing is fair in politics. Look, on stage and off stage at that conference all weekend, that's the only thing people were talking about. And that message from Trump is telling people to stop talking about it didn't work. You saw maybe it worked for Charlie Kirk over the space of the weekend, and now he doesn't want to talk about it anymore, but not landing with the base.
Alyssa, as somebody who knows public relations and certainly worked in this in the previous administration, the first term, what have they done wrong and right here?
Well, I think the big misperception was that Pam Bondi was not acting in lockstep with the White House when she put out this memo last week. This DOJ operates very closely with the White House. It's totally untraditional.
She would not have put out this memo.
I would say there is no chance that she put out this memo without at minimum telling the White House this is what it's going to say. And actually one of those supporters of Donald Trump said it well. The president could, if he wants everything the government has on Jeffrey Epstein to be released, he could snap his fingers and make DOJ do that tomorrow. So that's where I think Dan Bongino, the deputy FBI director, was misreading the room by going after Bondi and saying it's mere Bondi. Clearly, President Trump is standing by her. Clearly, she had authorization to put out what she did. But this might be the most dramatic misreading of Trump's base by the president. This is something that has animated his voters in such a palpable way. If you think of even the conspiracy theories like QAnon and Pizzagate that exist, they're all kind of tied into this idea of these pedophile rings, people in power who are getting away with things. So to kind of flip on this massive animating issue is something that it is not going to go away. Saying stop talking about it is not the answer.
Gretchen, do you think President Trump's post over the weekend just drew more attention to it all?
Yeah, because I think he's trying to just wish this away. And the more that he doesn't say any information about it, we know as journalists, we just want to know more about it, and it keeps the story alive. I think the only way really to combat this is to blunt what Pam Bondi has done and simply admit that she over-exaggerated what was there in the files. But then if he does that, he has to fire Pam Bondi. And he doesn't seem to have an appetite yet for doing that. So he's really in a pickle. And what I would just also add is that he should be talking about his victories right now. Let's face it, whether you like it or not, he passed the big, beautiful bill. He had a successful attack against Iran with no repercussions yet back on the United States. And yet, instead of, being in that, reveling in that political power, he's instead facing a rebellion.
Yeah. I mentioned this to you during the break, but I don't know. If I'm Dan Bongino and I want a podcasting career, because I don't think I'm going to have a longevity at the FBI in any further administration, it would seem to make sense if I'm Dan Bongino to want to leave the FBI now and be the guy who blew the whistle on this or left because of, being upset about Epstein. Otherwise, how's he going to get back into podcasting? That's my...
Isn't that just so absurd that that's a consideration for the deputy director of the
FBI? But it's incredible.
But it is. But
you're
right.
The FBI director, you never saw Chris Wray on any podcast.
But you're completely correct. And Tucker Carlson, again, we're living in a world where Tucker Carlson is the voice of reason. But he made that point on a podcast today.
Great. I'm glad we're in alignment.
But he literally, because these guys have good lives. I mean, they're making a lot of money. There's a great grift in this. Bongino had a great setup. And for him to come back, he's going to have to really, I guess, rebuild the trust of his audience. But very hard thing to do when this is precisely the thing you were going on about for years,
Where do you see this going?
It's also fascinating watching a lot of folks who called everyone else deep state when they weren't in government. Now they're sort of there and they realize there's information you may have access to that perhaps it's law enforcement sensitive. Perhaps it was overhyped and not that interesting and not that much there, even though you made a career and built a following around it. But what I think some folks around the Trump orbit misread is Donald Trump does not talk about Jeffrey Epstein very often. I looked it up. It was something like 5 times in the last decade, and in most cases, it was in response to somebody asking. I think he gets Jeffrey Epstein is an evil, gross dude that nobody likes, and his past association with him is not something he wants to highlight. But there are people from the vice president, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, who have built followings. They have kind of built their profiles on saying, we're going to get to the bottom of Epstein. And they didn't realize this president really didn't run on that. Perhaps people elected him on it because of his supporters saying that and people around him. And that's where this fracture is. He wants it to go away, and they promised people they were going to get them answers. So it's going to come to a head, and they're going to have to decide where they want to be. And I wouldn't be surprised if a Bongino walks at some point.
Gretchen, you heard your old colleague at Fox, Megyn Kelly, over the weekend. She also said that this controversy could cost the president in the midterms. Do you think there's really a chance of that happening?
Oh, who knows? I would bet much more on the fact that the tariffs affecting prices for consumers and potentially a bunch of small businesses going out of business as a result of the tariffs would be much more of an indicator on the midterms, because let's face it, you and I both know that it's the economy, stupid. I mean, that's pretty much what determines most elections. But there is kind of a red herring here, because to Alyssa's point, this seems like this incredible issue that's fracturing MAGA right now. And I find it fascinating as a political analyst, because the Epstein files have nothing to do with the MAGA-based daily life. Nothing. I mean, it's not about the economy. It's not about immigration. It's not about anything that actually affects them. And yet it seems to be so important. So I do see it as a potential red herring that it could have this long-lasting effect.
Well, it does. I mean, Donie, you and I have discussed this ad infinitum. It does tie into the whole QAnon, conspiracy theories about Democrats and Pizzagate and all that. It is wrapped up in that. Yeah,
I mean, that's a very interesting point in that I guess so many of the things that the MAGA base have been conditioned basically to be obsessed about they are distractions, right, from really things that have material impact on their lives. But that's part of the strategy, right? That is part of the strategy from the top to say, let's sell these conspiracy theories about evil cabals and everything else like that. So, yeah, I mean, really, they've fanned the flames of this conspiracy theory for years, and now they see the danger of playing with fire.
Alyssa, what do you think of Hakeem Jeffries on the Democratic side talking about, an investigation? Do you think that's a wise strategy for Democrats to kind of jump in on this?
If Democrats had some great messenger on maybe the minority leader on the oversight committee, this could potentially be. I've just yet to see Democrats really take hold of an opportunity from Donald Trump and win it. I will say this, though. I've been surprised by how much people left, right, and center are fascinated by this story and do feel lied to by the government. So that's where there may be an opportunity. I've heard from Democrats who are like, this just doesn't feel right. The video doesn't feel right. This memo that suddenly there isn't anything. So there may be an opportunity to reach voters and simply saying we want more transparency and trying to take up that mantle. But otherwise, it feels like it's a lot of the same bickering around the edges that we see in Congress.
Why wouldn't they release whatever files they have? I mean, I guess there may be witnesses who didn't want their names in there, victims perhaps. I don't know.
Go ahead.
a lot of things could be redacted. So in the way that in the national security space, you have things that are classified, oftentimes the DOJ has things that are law enforcement sensitive. It could deal with informants. It could deal with victims that you want to protect, stories that you want to. But there is a way, I'm nearly certain that there's more that the Department of Justice could put out while redacting sensitive information. That's what doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, we know that Trump has obviously hung out with Epstein in the past when there's no allegation of any wrongdoing there whatsoever. And from the people I spoke to this weekend, nobody thinks that Trump did anything wrong, right? But what some people speculated was, well, that maybe some of his friends in New York, there's maybe damaging things there, and they talked about how Trump is such a loyal guy and doesn't want to upset people's families in that sort of way. I will just mention, I mean, I can't underscore the disconnect here enough, because that post from the weekend, Trump's posts of the gals and boys, that was on Truth Social, basically a pro-Trump echo chamber. It has, I think, about 47,000 comments under it right now. I've never seen the likes of it on Truth Social before. They're basically all negative.
Really?
Yeah, they're all pushing
about the president.
Yes, pushing back against the president. I went through many of them. I couldn't find one positive thing. So that's very unusual.
Yeah.